Well, look, I appreciate everybody hopping on the call today. We got some interesting stuff to discuss today. As always, it's me, myself, and Andy Slifer. I'm more of an AI freak, I guess. So I've been deeply immersed in it for a couple of years, not to the extent that Steve has.
Wow.
But I've certainly been immersed in it from a marketing standpoint. Andy, of course, is a fractional CMO, more of a strategist. And he and I have been kind of really diving into this and trying to help clients get their heads wrapped around it. And the first thing that's on the agenda is the ethical considerations and the compliance aspects of using AI. And on the marketing side of things, it's kind of interesting because of all people, I don't know whether y'all read about this, but Kelly called it to my attention this morning, but of all people, an attorney got in hot water for using generative AI in a case pleading, I guess it was. And one of the things about ChatGPT is it does have a tendency to hallucinate. And we've had those issues before. But I had to laugh that it was an attorney, because ChatGPT literally made up cases and all this stuff. It just totally fabricated it. And he put it in front of a judge, and the judge was like,
well,
how's that different?
John, hold on a second. How's that different than any other attorney that goes to court? I'm sorry. I don't know the point you're trying to make.
Well, this time he has an excuse, right?
It's funny.
So this time he won't be sanctioned by the bar. I got it.
He's not lying. He's just misrepresenting where his sources are coming from.
That's right.
I apologize if there are any attorneys on this Zoom meeting, but I do not like attorneys at all. So I've been involved in a lot of lawsuits over the past year or two.
Really?
Spent millions of dollars for fraudulent, fake lawsuits where lawyers and their clients lie and lie and lie, and you got to go to the court systems, and then they get slapped down. It's unbelievable. I've got a true education. But continue.
Really? Oh well, yeah. So. Too bad the attorneys aren't the artificial part of the AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, where you could hit delete, right?
Just
well, the good news I heard that AI is going to basically reduce the need for attorneys by about 25%.
Really, that's interesting.
Paralegals, maybe. I don't know about attorneys.
Yeah, you never know. Well, I'll tell you what.
Or frivolous lawsuits will explode because they can.
Yeah, I think the frivolous lawsuits, they'll look for, with this type of technology, the patent searches that people have been doing by hand. Now you can use the AI tool by loading in all the patents and look for, the guys that are hunting to
violate or
How interesting.
Similar to what Bell faced when he tried, when he perfected the phone. He was saddled with 20 years of patent infringement bullshit.
Really?
These guys make a living off of looking for those niches and then blackmail them until someone pays them off.
Jeez.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
we'll continue.
Surprising. Yeah.
That's why the mob exists, you guys.
Yeah.
You can take care of these things professionally.
Right. There you go. Well, it is interesting, and I know from depending on what industry you're in, you might have some issues with compliance, like HIPAA compliance and things like that. Mm-hmm. Paul, you're in the direct mail business, and I'm sure that you've got some industries that are probably trying to use AI to generate copy. Do you have any words of wisdom, or are there any that you've had?
John, I wish I did. Thank you for sending that invite over, because it's so timely. I just came from the USPS, National Postal Forum in Charlotte, their big national conference. And it was really, really interesting because what came up, and they didn't do a session on it specifically, but every workshop I was in touched on AI. And it was intriguing, John, because quite frankly, I have to up my game. And I think everybody in my org does. And I think a lot of people really have to up their game and really find out. So I haven't run into those issues yet. But I can see the ramifications when you're writing copy and making promises and citing references, doing research. So John, I can't shed any words of wisdom on that, but I can tell you it's got my attention as an opener, and all the things you can do, and then just starting with Chat GPT 4, et cetera, and that rabbit hole. So I think this is a topic that everybody in every industry really needs to dive into, and you're timely, and you've been doing this for years, so hats off to you. I didn't know that, John.
Yeah, no, it's been really interesting. And I can tell you from a legal perspective, I have used Chat GPT to write contracts and agreements because I'm not trying to really get over on somebody. I just want a simple agreement, and I don't want to pay $5,000 to land a $200 gig. You know what I mean? So,
John, could I add something?
yeah, absolutely.
I would also caution everybody against putting any PII or privileged information or trade
Company
secrets or anything like
secrets,
that.
company
Any of that,
databases, all that kind of stuff.
because
Yeah.
you will inadvertently expose that to everyone.
Right.
The other thing that I think is likely going to happen, I don't know how fast it'll happen, but I'm loath to say it, but I think it'll happen eventually, that AI is going to end up getting to be internationally regulated, just like nukes do with the IAEA, because this is a precarious situation that we're in, and there's a lot of danger, a lot of risk out there, and people going off half-cocked. This doesn't mean that rogue nations are not going to abide by it or adhere to it, unless we leverage them with a very large international coalition. But this stuff can be extremely dangerous if we plug too much stuff into AI, and AI has too much control over something. The ramifications could be catastrophic.
I think a lot of people, like some of the big clients we've got, they're spending a lot of time using the AI to clean up their databases, so they don't have anything showing that would be construed or be able to pick it up. But the big leak is the government taps into all your communications, and they're selling that. They're selling it.
They're gonna take every opportunity to monetize that data if they have the opportunity. So that's got to be regulated also.
They're doing it illegally. They've been doing it for years on the data that you submit for, you're filling out forms, and they're handing that over to their favorite industry giants. So all this stuff, you can have a clean database as a company, but then you've got this huge endless pit of corruption going into the government as they collect data supposedly for the general good. In fact, generally it's just bullshit. So
yeah, well, I would give the same advice that I give to people about using social media. Be extremely cautious what you put in there, because the internet is forever.
Yeah.
So if you don't want it ever being used against you, it can and it will. Just, if you can avoid it, don't do it. Use it for what it's, summarize, simple things like professionalizing a resume, something like that. That's not a risky endeavor. But when you start plugging in stuff with customer data, especially if there's PII involved, or if there's classified or even controlled unclassified information, there's a lot of danger to be had.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was like, I'm sitting here just taking a database, and this is really just the tip of the iceberg. But from our CRM, I extracted a list of our clients over the last 25 years, just so I could pull it out of the CRM. So we're going to move to another CRM. I took that database, put it in a CSV, right? And then I converted it into a Google sheet so that I could manipulate the data, right? I just wanted to purge it. I knew there were a lot of people that had gone out of business, some people had passed away, et cetera. So I'm just kind of like manually going through it. You know, in my mind, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I could get AI to really see if a business is in the classification that it said it was in? So that was my thinking. Anyway, I thought I'm going to purge this data, and it's about 2,000 names. 2 days later, I get an email from Google that said one of your documents in Google Drive is potentially in violation of our policies. It could be used for phishing, phishing. I'm like, so you're looking at all the documents I got in my Google Drive, and you're looking at the data that's in it. And, you know, I'm thinking, damn, man, I mean, I thought, well, the last thing I want to do is really load anything into anything that Google has a hand on that, you know, is really private information, like our financials or, you know, anything like that. But that just stunned me that they literally are reading my site. It's one thing when you're just having a conversation and then 2 hours later you're getting targeted with an ad that happens to be about something you discussed. So you know they're
I mean, just
listening.
think
But
about
now they're
what
reading your damn
everybody's
files.
seen. You know, things like that happen all the time.
Mhm.
You get spammed with stuff about what you just talked about. Google's been penetrated. Google's been breached. There's not too many large providers that have not been ever breached. And you
you're in
have
the
to look at it
security
like this.
business though, right?
Even a business, once you've been breached, unless you're going to take everything down, air gap it, rebuild everything from scratch to where everything's clean and clear, it is a very monumental task to ensure as best you can that there's not something still in there. There's not a back door. There's not a rat hiding somewhere. There's not a you know, some kind of time bomb that's set to go off. Anything made by man can be broke by man. So don't let anybody ever tell you that something is bulletproof or impenetrable, because
That's
if it
true.
was made by man, it can be broke by man. That
But
being
just to
said,
clarify,
don't
just to-
plug that stuff in if
No,
you can
no.
help it.
just to clarify though, Damien, that's the business that you're in, right? You're in the security business,
That's right.
penetration testing and all that stuff.
That's
Wow.
right.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I'm here to tell
Apple,
you,
didn't Apple just announce or someone reveal that they have a backdoor on all their equipment?
that was some hardware that they put out. It was a chip manufacturer. I don't know if Apple was part of it. There was also another similar story with Android products, Android phones, or it may have been Samsung phones, but something very similar. But you know, you're at the mercy of the supply chain, so that's why security is a never-ending business.
That's the NSA, those they're paying big dollars to all these large operations. In fact, probably the lion's share of Google's budget was primarily the government in their effort to support the NSA.
Well, if you haven't watched the Edward Snowden movie, you really should watch it. Watch the original, the one called Citizen 4.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, and they've been doing that You guys, from my own experience, when Obama stepped in, he used the NSA to screen all the military. So he rifted anybody that said anything negative or out of line with whatever his policies were. So he dumped about 400 generals and colonels out of the military.
And
Which
don't
he
think
has
they
the right
won't.
to do. He can monitor, in the military, you have no rights. So they're monitoring every communication, any conversation, everything else. And this was long before a lot of this came to the front. So I think what we're seeing is people are going to go to tokenization. You're going to have a token of your medical data, your personal data, and you'll be very selective and to the extent that you provide anything, but preferably you wouldn't have to do that if it's done right. So
Yeah.
a lot of technology is moving in that direction, a decentralized, and HP is supporting that. They've put in on their hardware the idea of a decentralized network with their servers, so you can break
Oh,
up the information and you can tokenize, and making it really difficult for any of these institutions to
Well,
get.
that's the point I was gonna make is and please, nobody take this the wrong way. You can make it idiot resistant, you can't make it idiot proof.
Right.
Anything made by man can be broke by man. When you get a chance, Google what is Prism in the NSA. And you'll see the program that you're talking about where the NSA is basically capturing everything. They're hoovering up data everywhere, anybody, anytime, any place. If
It's
it's
also
connected
a
to the
bit-
internet, it's out there.
Yeah, we've got other clients that, so they're monitoring all the videos, you guys. So it used to be very difficult to read videos and get information, and that's been overcome. So you have to think any camera that you get on, everything is being recorded. And if they can take you, you're totally transparent. So
And don't you find it kind of rich, the hoo-ha over TikTok?
well, the reason why TikTok has got everybody up in arms is that we've been doing it for 20 years or longer. I mean, this goes all the way back to Clinton when he cleaned out the Boeing management when they threatened him with treason. If you remember in the 90s, what happened was Clinton was involved with this. We had a top secret manufacturing facility in LA, and we're making carbon fiber. We're weaving and impregnating carbon fiber, which reduced the weight of aircraft wings and everything else. You can make them into the shape and strength that you wanted by about 60%. So we tested it all out with NASA and McDonnell Douglas, and then Boeing, and then so we put up a plant out there to start producing. And Clinton, out of the blue, said he's going to literally give it to the Chinese. So the Boeing executives, and they came and they dismantled the whole plant and shipped it to China. And the Boeing guys freaked out, and they were at the senior level talking about, what do? You accuse the president of treason. Within 2 weeks, all of them were gone. So
wow, that's wild.
Yeah,
That's
so
really wild.
But a big thing with TikTok is that all of that data is available to the CCP. And even if it was for no other reason than for them to be able to monetize that data, that's a reason for them not to have it.
I think TikTok is is not monetizing data. I think it's feeding our young skulls full of mush.
Well, that too.
yeah,
Well,
I think
Messaging that is not of a positive nature.
It's influence peddling is what it is.
Anyway,
yeah.
hey, this is all great about everything that we can't really control, but we sure have to look out for. This is fabulous. These are some points that I didn't even think about. But John, when you put this slide up, was it also from the standpoint of us as content providers, content creators?
Yeah,
And
that's what I was trying to.
what we need to do and think about so that we can be ethical and
Yeah.
conform
Yeah.
and not be a problem, or perceived as a problem when you're getting a message from Google that you're violating a terms of service or
Yeah.
something like that. That's a problem. So
Yeah.
anyway, great conversation on all that other stuff to watch out for. Now, what do we need to think about as we're content creators and working with content creators?
Yeah, so good question and good segue back. In terms of compliance, I know that they're trying to come up with all kind of regulations. I know that the Biden administration has 2 documents out there that haven't become law, but they're basically asking people to kind of self-regulate at this point. There's going to be more coming up, I'm sure. But from my and Bob, you just shot a message to everybody in there. You might want to chime in on this, but in terms of ethics from a marketing perspective, I think a lot of it is there are concerns that AI generated content is plagiaristic in nature. And I think that also bears, it depends on what tool you're using. I can tell you just by the nature of how ChatGPT operates and how Anthropic operate, those 2 are true generative AI. So they're essentially predicting the next word, as they say. It's way more complicated than that. But what it generates is its compilation of thoughts based on every piece of information that it was fed. And when we're building our own prompts for marketing purposes, we want to make sure that we're really kind of leveraging AI to do some of the heavy lifting, but we're also injecting our own thoughts and opinions in there so that it actually creates a document or an ebook or something that is truly a balance of authenticity. But we're always asking it to cite its sources if it quotes somebody or it creates a source, so that we can verify it. So the one thing I would say that, I don't know, Andy, you can speak to this probably as well, but we use it to get a massive head start on content, but we're always monitoring what it comes up with to make sure that it's accurate. Like I created a blog post the other day where I was using some of the external tools or the plugin store inside of ChatGPT to do some of the research. I made sure that it footnoted them. I clicked over to the links to make sure they were active, and it worked out, well.
Yeah.
But also, when it gets into this hallucination mode and says some weird stuff, I always have to rewrite it anyway because it seems to talk in circles. But what are your thoughts on it?
I'm learning quickly, using it to generate copy as foundational to build upon. So, feeding it bullet points and saying, build this according to this, and then going back in and tweaking the copy largely, but it cuts my time down by probably 2/3. Now, in terms of the use of it, to your point, yes, I'm constantly monitoring it. And the other thing is I'm not using any brand names or anything like that in relation to what I'm feeding it. So it's all very genericized. The other thing that I've noticed is to the hallucination point. I think I brought this up before, but I was using it to provide notes from conversations with clients of my clients. So just basically some qualitative research. And I thought, well, if I'm doing that, I can pull quotes from the copy and have it pull the quotes to support the insights that it's suggesting that there are there. Well, I quickly noticed these quotes. I'm like, I don't remember that person saying that. Well, of course, it's hallucinating the quotes, and so I had to hit the brakes pretty quickly on that. But that's where I've seen some odd stuff going on.
That's really interesting. Andy and John, if you could suggest, like, what for this basic research that we're discussing right now, how you use it, basic function, research to write copy or blog posts, etc. What plugins, if any, are you using? Because that is really confusing to me, because there is so much. I'm trying to make a list of them to even research, and that I can't even keep up with that.
Well, what I've seen is just a matter with ChatGPT of using the right prompts, and John can talk more to that. He's really mastered this.
Yeah, there are a couple plugins. I'll drop one in there, but there are a bunch. But I use the one called Web Chat GPT because what it does, you can tell it how many references from the current web, from a current Google web search that you want to include as information that it uses in deriving its response. And it will footnote them. And then you can,
Okay.
just like John was talking about, you can go back and click on those actual URLs that it collects for you and verify it yourself to make sure that it's not some wingnut in Azerbaijan that wrote the damn article. You know, I mean, the point, the whole idea, I mean, people are getting really excited in a lot of good ways and bad ways about what we're talking about here, but I'm reserving my comments to just the text engines that we are experiencing, that is Chat GPT, because AI is there's a lot.
Okay.
AI is a
Gotcha. I understand.
if you use AI as an all-encompassing term from a computer science standpoint, you're making an error.
I understand.
Because what we're talking about now are language models, right? And all they are glorified databases that have just used a methodology of collecting and assembling and organizing that data so that you can do what we talk about, which is plain text processing, right? So that's really what they do. And they're huge, and they've got references to all of these, where they found everything, and all of that's built into the structure of these neural nets. And that's kind of how they work. But they are just as stupid as a doorknob.
Yeah.
So the other error is applying some sort of intelligence to what it is that you're talking to, and you're basically talking to your spreadsheet. I mean, you got to remember, that's what you're interfacing with is the text processing equivalent of a spreadsheet, but it's an AI deal that has better capabilities. So I mean, that's what we're talking to. So it's not smart. It doesn't know what the hell you are. None of that, right? So as you guys are talking about, sometimes they've gotten better about trying to control things like hallucination, and people can ask that question. Well, wait a minute, why does it hallucinate? Because it has no context. It's not a human, doesn't have emotions, it doesn't know how to put anything in any context. It's just all words. And it uses grammatical laws and semantic and grammatical laws about how to assemble those things. But we all know, right? I mean, you can have a hammer and you can hit your finger just as easy as you can hit a nail if you don't have context or understanding of what it is that you're looking at. So it's kind of a blunt force tool that's just pretty sophisticated as a tool, right? I mean, it's a smart tool to use. But just like everybody here is talking about, it has its shortcomings, and sometimes hallucinations. Yeah. We call hallucinations when they put language together that doesn't make any damn sense. That's what that is, right? And if you don't ask those prompts, and you're all very correct about, look, you got to construct your prompts, because it's a very much a garbage in, garbage out kind of a thing. If you put a garbage prompt in there, you're going to get garbage stuff coming out the backside, because it's just assembling language that kind of adheres to what it is that you're talking about, or what it assumes you're talking about based on your language. Right. So if your language is not good going in, then its language coming out is going to be a lot more fuzzy and loose. And now I will I will comment 1 minute about the whole quote plagiarism thing. Look, right. People have been using ghostwriters since the beginning of time to generate content that they put in their books and put their name on. So before everybody gets wildly excited about using language that's been generated by somebody else, well, you have to go back to 200 years of authorship and start talking about all the ghostwriters and content generators that assemble facts, data, and language to hand to a quote author, who assembles that into a document or a book and then sells that to us as a unique work. So,
well, we're humans. That's how we communicate. That's how we learned how to communicate when we were babes. So got it. I mean,
yeah, I mean, so
got it.
Put that all in context to, okay, this is just another way to get language. And the great thing about it is just like, and I use it for the same reason. It's very quick to go assemble a bunch of data that I can then use and distill into something that I can put my emotion, my context, my subject matter expertise into, and I can generate a 40-page document in a fraction of the time. Because what do I do as a human if I'm not doing that? I have to go type all that language in. I got to think about how to get it in the right order. I got to think about the punctuation.
Sure.
I got to think about all of that crap that has nothing to do with what it is I'm trying to convey as a meaningful message to someone. It's just busy work, right? So what this thing is allowing me to do is to skip a lot of the busy work and then really put the thought leadership that I want to put in there where it needs to be to have the best effect. So that's my observations about it. And as a marketing tool, you can see the benefit that it can give you, because I mean, you really can assemble a lot of information from a lot of different sources in almost a few seconds amount of time which is 8 orders of magnitude quicker than you could have done that same activity before, just on something as simple as, hey, I want to do a blog post on this subject. Tell me everything about this, and it'll bring you back a ton of info that you can distill down into something useful. So that would be my input.
Yeah, the
I think
thing
their
that
research-
I keep noticing is that, well, like if you go on YouTube, all these people saying, "Oh, this prompt is going to change your life," and they're the most basic of prompts, and they give you a whole bunch of useless stuff as a business.
Well, there's been snake oil salesmen since the beginning of time. This is just a
Oh,
new,
yeah.
this is just a new place for them to gimp you out of money. They're going to tell you, hey, I'll sell you for $50. I'll save you the 100 best prompts.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Look, I've seen one now that's saying, for $50 you can have 10,000 prompts, literally 10,000 prompts. I'm like, who the hell has time to go through 10,000?
What are you going to do with that?
I guarantee you they're one sentence prompts, and a one sentence prompts doesn't cut it. But when you can really develop complicated prompts like the ones that we've generated, you create it once, you put it in a library. Like I know I've shown you guys before what ours looks like, but you have all these that you can use, and then people inside your organization can call on them. Like I have one right over here that just allows me to craft a quick reply to somebody.
Wow.
If I need a long reply. But you can see it's a fairly complicated thing, but it has context, it has style points. We have 35 different style points that we've been able to analyze copy against, and we don't use them all in there. But all I do is I paste in the email that somebody sent me. I throw in some bullet points on what I want to say, and then I run it, and it crafts a damn good email that I only have a little bit to change. And so, when you're in one of those situations where like you don't have a whole lot of time, you got to get it off your plate. In the old days, I would hand it to an assistant who would craft something, and then I'd have to go, it doesn't really sound like me. But because I have all these style points, I call them points. They're
John, stay
variables,
right there. Stay right where you are. I need
Yeah.
everybody needs to see that little style section. That's the
Yeah.
magic right there, right?
No,
that little style section he has on the
total
screen,
magic.
because you can adjust this to tune the types of language it will use in response. You'll see there's even the humor level. Now you're getting a
30 more,
computer. Yeah, there are 30 something levels or whatever, right?
35 of these that we've been able to identify.
35
so
attributes, yeah, and then they have different levels in each. But
now
now you're getting the machine
1 to
interpretation of
5s.
humor level 3, what it's like compared to humor level 2. So don't get me wrong, you gotta read that when you do it, but you can play with this until you're getting something out that sounds relatively close to the way you might approach that. So there are tuning opportunities in this, which is what John's pointing out.
Precisely.
You can tune these things.
Yeah. And Paul, I can send you this if you want it. But
I'm not trying to steal it. This is just fascinating. What you've done for years. I mean, you've been 3 years ahead of.
No, here's what we do, right? We'll, like, for instance, we'll go into, maybe it's a law firm, maybe it's a healthcare organization, and maybe it's a company that has 3 people, senior level execs who want to be writing blog posts. We'll go in and we'll use this analysis to essentially create what we call the DNA, the writer or the author's DNA. And so we'll create a prompt like this, because the way you write in an email is different from the way you would write a legal opinion, is different from the way you would write some sort of a case study, right? So you have different variables there. But you can see I've got them for myself in here. I got a semi-casual writing style. I have a more casual writing style. So I have these different things. I just take it and I pop it and I roll. And so, that's why we call it the author's DNA. I can create these style points. They're all going to vary depending upon what I'm trying to accomplish, but it would allow an assistant to write like the CEO and then quickly give it back. So instead of the assistant having to take 45 minutes to write something and then the CEO take 15 minutes to modify it, the assistant or the CEO can generate it in 7 seconds, modify it, and get it off their plate.
John, I haven't tried this.
Sounds really good.
John, I haven't tried this. Have you tried feeding in like a document you've written before and saying, hey, ChatGPT, tell me what the style variables would be?
That's how we got this.
That's what I thought, because that's a way you can go and actually get your preliminary set of these style documents. Say, okay, here's a document I wrote myself. Tell me what those style attributes are for that text.
That's one of the things I was going to say. You can use ChatGPT to teach you how to work ChatGPT.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what we do when we say we're going to create the author's DNA. We take a bunch of samples of the writing. We have Chat GPT analyze it according to those style points. And then, it puts them in some random order. So we have to put them in a
Yeah.
more specific order.
But that's a pretty
And
good hack
sometimes-
everybody should use, right? I mean, that's a
it's
really good hack
yeah.
that
No,
you
it's-
can
it's
personally
phenomenal.
use to kind of to
Right.
help you get started, right off the bat.
Yeah.
It's a hack
And
that
what-
I got to bring Bazooka into clients with.
Yeah.
That's the hack.
Right. But you have, once you get it mastered, right? So like it'll come back and it'll say, writing style, not writing style, let's say education, intermediate, humor level, moderate, so we changed it to a numeric 1 to 10. And so that way you really have control. And it's fascinating when you're trying to fine tune, that response. You delete a few of them, you add a few of them. There's this thing called burstiness. There's pace. There are all kinds of things that you can put in there. But once you get it fine tuned, it's really interesting, especially when you're playing around with the knobs and going from a humor level of 1 to a humor level of 10.
Yeah, it's funny.
Or from an
you-
intensity level of 10 on down.
Do you have the back end receipts generally? In other words, A/B split tests and that kind of thing, or multivariate splits now with this in testing a different style. I mean, we all know, okay, we can test a headline. So how about this? Here's the winner.
Right.
But testing in the voice, or you know what I'm saying? Have you
Yeah.
tried
No.
any of that, or is that
So it's way more complicated than that,
Okay.
unfortunately, because testing copywriting isn't about the style as much as it is about the words that are used and the topic and the audience. So you
There you go.
can't
right?
just
But that's
go,
what I
"Let
was
me
saying. Once
define
you
a
control
style."
for that, I mean, the headline and the copy,
Right.
and you have a
but
champion.
ChatGPT doesn't have that, right? So that's where you literally do your traditional advertising tests where you do an A/B split test, but it never boils down to the style per se, because most of the time it boils down to a human looking at it
Right.
and going, ChatGPT was close on this, but I need it to be stronger, and that's where you're going to do your A/B test and improve. I don't know whether that
Yeah,
answers the
ChatGPT
question
is no
totally.
challenge when compared to my corny sense of humor. I can out-corn that thing
You can
100 to 1,
at
right?
any time.
So I mean, people know it's from me, right? I mean, because that language
Right.
model never perceived how corny an individual could actually get with language. So, but this is a good example. I would say, another thing I'd like to highlight, this is a good example. People talk about jobs lost, because of these types of things, but these are jobs gained, right? Learning how to use this tool and tune it to get an outcome is going to become another profession, another thing that you can do to help companies take advantage of the tool, right? So it's like every new
Yeah.
technology, doors close, but other doors open.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, they call this prompt engineering. I think it will. I only think it'll probably last another year, and
It's a short
then AI will be smart enough to kind of
Do it
do something else. But
themselves.
I really, while it'll certainly prevent people from hiring. I think it will really, you've heard me say it before. I really think it's just a way to compress time. So I can generate far more stuff in a faster period of time. Like, for instance, we created a course that teaches people how to create an ebook and all of the marketing behind it, the landing page and thank you page, the promotional emails and all that stuff, which typically takes 3 weeks to produce. We can produce it in under an hour. And I had a guy just last night who finished halfway through the course, and he shot me an email and he said, I'm absolutely blown away by the quantity and quality of content this thing will produce in minutes, and so, he acts as the marketing director for 3 different companies that his entity controls. And he's like, this is a complete game changer for me. But if you were to just take those basic 1-word prompts, you're going to generate crap. And the thing that we have is it's massive, right? It took lots of time to produce this kind of prompting system that you've kind of taking a sneak peek at. But once you get that
Hey-
down, the AI will change. And now all of a sudden a prompt that was working won't work. And so you have to know how to
Get back, right.
switch that gear, you know?
Hey, John, side
sir.
question here, but have you done any of this sort of thing with the visual generation AI tools like Midjourney or anything like that?
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
just curious.
Oh, yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I was going to show you guys is inside of ChatGPT now, Bob, I don't know if you played around with it, but you know, they have the plugin store.
Right. That's where
And
I got my web
just
chat.
yesterday, they finally added a search feature. You know, there wasn't a search feature, so you had to scroll for days.
Right.
And I was like, okay, how many more of these are they going to do before they finally put on a search feature? But they put on a search feature in there. Inside of here, there is this one called photorealistic, which will help you generate a Midjourney prompt. Now, it
Yeah.
does a pretty good
Wow.
job, but you still have to fine tune it because Midjourney can go off the rails.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
also noticed, like, for instance, the actual parameter for making something an aspect ratio of 16:9, they spell it out and you don't. You just do --AR space 16:9.
By 9. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You can define the camera you're using. You can define the
Yep.
f-stop. You can define, I mean,
Everything.
just amazing stuff. And Midjourney is crazy what it'll do. Now,
I've
if you've played
been
around-
spending time on it this week, and it's just unreal what it's been
It's
able to
nuts.
do.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, look, this image behind here was created by Midjourney. The last
Really?
promotional thing that went, actually every promotional LinkedIn post I've made on this particular roundtable, all of those were generated by Midjourney. Have you looked at the AI that's now built into Photoshop?
Yeah, that's
It's
the one I was going to mention. That
Freaking
one's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, it's really,
It's
really
not just
cool.
Photoshop, it's in the Adobe tools in general, right? They've got it in Illustrator.
Yeah, they've got it in there now.
Premiere.
There's so many. Everybody's.
Hey,
in
John,
it.
John,
Yes, sir.
what's the cost of this from the
20
standpoint
bucks.
of 20 bucks?
a month.
So basically generating all these photos or pictures or backgrounds or whatever it may be, it's going out, it's pulling, it's creating, and it's giving you something to say yes or no, all for 20 bucks a month, correct?
Yep.
Well, so Midjourney is
Unlimited.
$10 a month. Yeah, Midjourney is $10 a month. ChatGPT, if you get the upgraded version, which is ours, is $20 a month. And
You're
inside
under
the
50
organization,
bucks.
we have 5 different licenses to it because there's this limit here of 25 messages every 3 hours. And when you hit that limit,
So you have 125, you pool your thing, and so your corporation has
Yeah.
125.
Yeah, because once
Right.
it throws you in what we call ChatGPT jail, then you're kind of stuck. Now, they did add a new feature, Bob. I don't know whether you've run across it yet, but you could go in here and I'm going to take one. So like this one, I had a prompt where I was feeding it information. You can kind of
Right.
see here, I fed information about what our optics framework is. Then I fed in the different things that I have to go through to teach somebody how to implement optics. But you can see I have variables here that don't have anything, but I gave it some samples. And then I wrote a prompt that says, I want you to fill in the rest of the blanks. And it did it. And it did a
Yep.
really nice job. Okay, so now if I got into ChatGPT jail, all of that background data that's up here would be stuck. And I couldn't, in the past, up until 2 days ago, I couldn't use it over here. I'd have to start all over again and I'd end up back in jail. But now what you do is you go over here to the share button. It creates a link. You just copy that little link. And then I would go over here to a
Right.
new session. I'd
Got it.
paste that, right? And now I've got it. Now it says continue the conversation and it turns this into the new license thing. But you'll notice that this is not over here yet. And it won't be over here until I actually put something down here and I would just say, thanks. And once I say thanks, it now engages it and puts the conversation in my session. So that was a really cool thing. And so now I have all the background data and I can start working. as if I never got in jail in the first place. Does that make sense? It's a pretty handy tool.
That's a short-term problem though, by the way, that limited number of sessions like that. That's
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah.
be forever.
Yeah, no.
That's just
but
because
it's-
there's such
I
an
did-
overwhelming
Whole
demand,
law.
you know?
Yeah.
I did
no,
want to
but-
say about Midjourney real quick. If you do license Midjourney, you need to get the pro version if you're going to be using
Right.
it for commercial purposes, any of the
Correct.
images.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
Still orders of
fascinating. It's a little
magnitude
trickier.
cheaper than any other method to generate stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we'll
And
tell
orders
you
of
this.
magnitude quicker.
I will tell you this, it doesn't know the difference between beef and brisket. Because I tried to make it generate a photo of a
It ain't gonna
sliced
go over
smoked
big in
brisket.
Texas.
No.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, right now I'm just still learning how to prompt it and that sort of thing, but you're exactly right. Midjourney, you can give it very specific nodes and inputs, and it will knock stuff out. It's not really good with hands.
Yeah.
It's not good with certain things, but
No.
it's amazing. Can
Yeah.
I share something real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So on a whim, I'm just sort of novelty using it right now just to see how to experiment with it. But I just said, David Bowie is Minnie Pearl. And this is what it gave me.
Go ahead. Did
It's
you share your
amazing
screen?
what,
Oh my God.
there it is.
Wow.
That was one
That's-
quick
Wow.
prompt.
That's hilarious. Jeez.
Anyway,
How'd you do that? Well, look,
Where
I
was
know
the
we
price
got
tag?
Huh? Where was the
Good
price tag on
point.
the hat?
See, that's the
Right.
semantics
No,
we were talking about,
I
right?
need
Hmm?
to add that.
That's the semantics we were talking about, right?
Right.
We all know
Yeah.
consciously that Minnie Pearl had that tag hanging on her hat, but that language model just knew she had a hat, right? So you're exactly right. That's exactly the point. Those are the fine details that won't be in something generated by these models. Yes.
Precisely.
So the last topic, and we've kind of already brushed over it, which was maintaining authenticity in the AI generated copy. And you can see how we do it by creating those style points. So it can sound like you. We've even identified a dialect style point that you could use in there. So if you're from South Dakota, it literally will write and use those colloquialisms from
Right.
South Dakota. You can imagine what we got here in Louisiana. Right. So it'll do all kind of
Barely
stuff.
understand anybody from Louisiana.
I bet it doesn't know how to spell Boudreaux and Thibodeau though.
You'd be surprised.
You,
If you
If
can't
you tell
put
it,
a
if you
bunch
tell
of-
it to write in the style of Cajuns and make a joke, you're gonna see Boudreaux and Thibodeau a lot.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
you will.
Just
You
put
absolutely
a bunch of
will.
marbles in your mouth and you'll sound like a
Yeah.
Louisiana person.
There you go. There you go. Depends on what part, but no,
John,
it's,
one tidbit I'm picking up on is that you are so very, very well positioned as a company and as leadership and as helping people for money for your services, for your paid services for this, because you're light years ahead of where most people are at. And it's going to be really interesting. So we'll discuss that later.
well, thanks. I mean, it'll be interesting. I wouldn't say that I'm light years ahead.
Well-
it's like I always say, in order to teach the third grade, you only have to be smarter than the third graders. And I feel like I'm teaching fourth grade, right? A lot of the times, because there are so many people that know so much more than me. I mean, like Steve's been in this for 20 years. Bob, you've been in it for at least 15 or so. And Steve has developed some really fascinating technology for huge companies. I'm just dabbling on the marketing side.
But
and
that's what
trying
I'm
to make
saying.
things work.
That's it. But John, that's what I'm saying. I'm a marketing guy. I'm from the standpoint of marketing, not engineering and process engineering and all that
Right.
kind of stuff, and languages and big government contracts and all that kind of stuff, which is awesome. It's just not my thing. Where I am is in the marketing space. And like I
Mhm.
said, when I just came back from that conference, it's really fresh in mind. And we've got 4,000 of our colleagues and associates, and, starting with the Postmaster General himself, leading from all aspects of print communication and its fulfillment. But when it comes down to it, it's all about data, right? So everything we do is data. So you're the nexus of that on using these type of tools to understand the prompts and to do all this kind of stuff, instead of any ham-handed guy can go in and ask a dumb question and get a dumb answer out. But that's not what you're doing. So I really appreciate that. Creating that table of prompts, for instance, I can see that has a very, very high value. That has a very high value for different companies. They will pay for this. You know,
Well, I mean, that's kind of my goal, right? We sold off our agency last year to help businesses basically market better using AI, so they can scale, as we phrase it, so they can scale up with AI rather than HR. And I want
That's
I want
good.
to give the small businesses a chance to grow, because this is a game changer for a lot of people. And if you don't use it, the people who do are going to blow by you. This is moving so fast. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
nobody's ever seen anything like
I
this.
think this is going to be such a revolution, you guys. I mean, if you look at the farming industry, when they automated, we're down to what, 2% of the population's in farming, 3%. Once they move from fixed line to variable line, in manufacturing, you saw the layers and layers. I'm meaning in the steel industry. I just watched like 17 layers of people between the guy on the line versus the head guy. Now we did that with Birmingham Steel. We got it down to really 2 people, and that allowed us to make steel for $200 a ton versus $660 a ton.
That's revolutionary. I mean, that's
Yep. Yep. And guys, that's why I started out. I've been dealing with a lot of attorneys, and there's going to be less attorneys in this country. It's not the paralegals, it's the attorneys. And because this chat GPT or AI, whatever you want to basically call it, it's going to write all the briefs for you. It's going to basically pull in all the data. The paralegals may actually do some research, but most of the time, all the research on all the cases, case law going back for 50 years, it's really done by junior associates and even some higher level junior partners, because you can't leave it up to paralegals to basically do it all. And so yeah, you're right. I mean, manufacturing, industrial revolution, variable manufacturing, dynamic manufacturing, customization, it's eliminated all the workers you need in all the factories. It's going to do this in the service industry, whether it be in marketing or whether it basically be in law, whether it be in architecture, whether it be in anything.
Well, if
Yeah,
you
like
look
they
at the
say, it's gonna affect the
scale,
knowledge workers.
if you look at the scale and scope of communication in general, right, which makes everything work for us as a society, is our communication ability. And you look at how much of that is written communication and what we use it for every day. Well, you're taking something and you're reducing the amount of effort to be a good communicator by multiple orders of magnitude. So that has ripple effects across the entire ecosystem that is built around that communication industry in general, right? So I mean, it is just as we know this is coming with robots that are going to be doing some of the manual labor like digging ditches and all those other things, and humans are going to be out of that business. This is doing the same thing for the communication business. It's just going to create a rearranging of how this all works, and everyone's going to have to seek a new level somewhere in that ecosystem, because there's not going to be any stopping this.
And it's up the ladder. You got to go up the ladder. Like John, you said, it's all relative. You got to be up the ladder just enough so you can look down and run. And you'll be fine.
I think you're looking at it wrong. We talked about this, what the last call is on, is the economy operates on 2 people exchanging goods and services. So the pyramid has always been top down. The pyramid with this technology is the reverse. So
I agree.
You have an economy which is all driven by that moment and the efficiency of that exchange of goods and services that can be created using AI, which allows you then to build what you're going to see as a massive decentralization as economic systems, which only require about 4,000 people, and grow their own food, generate their own energy, communicate with each other, make whatever goods that are required, and they can print them. So you're going to have a huge amount of social unrest as this transition occurs.
It's going to be difficult. You're right about that, Steve. That's the biggest thing because it really democratizes the power of communication, right? Because this puts this in everybody's hands. This is not something that just people who can afford it can do. This is $50 a month, and you are now swinging.
Yeah, but Bob, you point out exactly. That's everybody on this call what we're saying, but it's also going to make the chasm between, I'm going to say the haves and the have-nots,
Yeah.
because most people
Yes.
don't grasp
right about
the
that.
opportunity of even just living here. Let's start off with the basics, right? And so there's going to be, I hate to say it, we have a split economy now because we have a split populace, and that split's going to get wider and wider and wider. And the people that can use these tools keep getting better and better and better and richer and richer and richer in every sense of the word. And the people that are left behind are shoplifting and rioting and
Right.
breaking things.
Yeah.
And that is going to get bigger and bigger and
Well-
bigger. It is a society problem.
Paul, my observation is this, because my 12-year-old son, who doesn't know how to program, doesn't know anything about computers, can now generate his own content, right? So
Yep.
he's not, from a technological gap standpoint, which is what you were referring to, right?
Deeper than that, that's just part of it.
Well, it's part of the knowledge, but I mean, in reality, access to technology and the knowledge behind it, right? So
Yep.
education-wise, but I could, from a general education standpoint, my son can swing now at the same level as somebody who is a $100,000 content creator because he's got tools. You know, he's got
Oh,
tools,
no, I
he's got
get
tools,
that.
He's got tools that pick up
And he's
and
up
haul the
here.
water.
And
Yeah.
he's up here.
Yeah, but you're also going to be watered down as the whole world becomes available for this. Just the difference in pay scale between India and
Offshore, baby.
China,
Yeah.
offshore. So you've got all the kids. Like I got 2 kids down in Mexico that set up. They've got their operations running out of Hong Kong, the Philippines, and Ukraine, and it's moving offshore, you guys, wherever the opportunity is. And in the US, you've got whatever it is, 10% of the population's generating, paying 80% or more of the taxes. When you have that type of disparity, that number is actually, just as Bob was saying, that number is going to continue to erode, where you're going to have 5%.
That's what
And-
I'm saying.
And when that happens,
Yep.
you're the minority, and it's going to be a lot of social unrest until people
No, it will
figure
be.
out, can they establish these local economies, whether it's in the city or out in the middle of nowhere. But places like Africa, where you've got a backward opportunity to really advance quickly. I mean, there's huge opportunities, but it's going to take a lot of shifting and moving people around and training.
Well, you've given me a lot of fodder for next week, because next week we're going to be assessing the impact and the future of AI in marketing. And it's I'm going to be kind of assessing different tacks that we can take to talk about this, because the question is, will I don't know that it will be going offshore, because right now using AI is a hell of a lot cheaper than using India, and it's a lot more effective.
It
So
doesn't,
that's what's going to be interesting.
John, it's not going offshore. It's just allowing people to compete, with the only difference is transportation and handling. I mean,
Which
so
is a big thing. Which is a big thing.
it is a big thing, but if you
Big
can,
cost.
if you can print locally and you can generate your energy locally, you can power your hydroponics for food. You can manufacture other than the raw materials that are required. So you literally are going back to villages. And
Yeah,
That's
but you
coming.
can't. But that's all cool. But you can't. But you can't compete against scale. So scale will crush you like the cockroach that you are when you're comparing things at scale versus, in other words, I'm a printer. I don't see, everything was going to be 3D printing. Well, really hard to compete as a 3D printer if somebody's doing something at scale. They're going to take my head and hand it to me. It's good for specialized things, limited quantity things, but there's certainly a place for both, as you say, decentralized, which is happening, but scale as well. So I don't think scale's going away.
Requires inventory. Inventory requires capital. So if I can print on demand, then normally that 15 to 20%, and also the farther you move away from something, the more people get in the way of touching it, whether it's banking or whether it's goods moving, and they tax you. So you've got this.
Absolutely. I happen to be a print on demand printer. There's a lot of good things about it. It's a great thing. That's what I sell: print on demand, variable printing, data printing. You're absolutely right. And I'll put that, now I've contradicted myself in the sense against something that's at scale, but the thing at scale is still cheaper than my widget. That's kind of the point, not the effect of my widget, but the widget itself.
Yeah,
So,
but if you look at what Tesla's done with their manufacturing, they've taken the print concept, built factories around that with very few people. And so the idea that you could do that into a local market, you don't, it's the same thing that happened with fixed line versus variable line. You've destroyed the overwhelming power of the large organization or the required bureaucracy. You're bringing it down, as I said, two people exchanging goods and services with everything that you need at your fingertips. So it ends up being, that's why I think the local economy will dominate. We track the AI, the distance between, where you're located and what's your radius. A restaurant in New York is 1 block.
Wow.
1 block. And those restaurants survive with about 150 to 200 regular customers. That's it. And then if you look at an equipment dealer, if you're in the city in LA, it's 12 miles. If you're out in Montana, it's 150 miles. But it's so tight that it really is. You look at your corner drugstore, you look at, Walmart originally built their model on a 10-mile radius. They've shrunk that down dramatically. So a lot of this stuff is, the economies are coming together, the ability to manufacture and deliver and communicate. In order to handle the people that are in the world, it's going to require millions of specialized communities that are self-supportive, and then we'll find trade, going back to the village concept of whatever something is unique that maybe other people might want.
Yeah.
that's cool. But China's going to be shipping electric cars to the United States of America. And guess what their price point is? Under $6,000. So as soon as they clear some hurdles, that's really, really disruptive. And that is mass scale, and that's offshoring. So all this stuff is really complicated and complex, but there's a lot of opportunity for all of the stuff, both decentralized and scaling.
But Paul, what was going on with steel, we were shipping all of our scrap to China, who was in Korea, where they were melting it down and using ladle technology to improve it, and they're shipping it back 9,000 miles back, and they would have to go through transportation in order to get to the various locales.
Well, they'll be keeping it to make electric cars for $6,000 and under, and shipping it back as a finished good.
It's still raw materials. It still comes down to raw materials. So wherever they're located, and what's the transportation in order to get there, and what's the currency it's denominated in. So a lot of this stuff it's those type of situations are going to evaporate. That's what, because it's mostly energy that you're talking about.
Well,
where's the most efficient energy, and how do I get it? The materials there, and is it better in a raw state, which it is, because I can make many things from it, versus a finished state where I'm shipping a lot of air in the form of a car around the world.
Well, another day.
Yeah.
Well,
It's an opportunity for what you're doing, Paul.
That's
It's,
right.
For everybody has opportunity. That's, everybody has opportunity.
It's going to be interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate the spirited debate, gentlemen. It was very interesting today. Like I said, next week we're going to be talking about the future of it in marketing, and what's that mean for copywriters? What's that mean for designers? What's that mean for programmers? Developers. Lots of things are already shifting. Using AI. I know loads of companies that aren't hiring. I don't know anybody yet that's firing, but I've seen some people, still hire, but I can't decide, and that's what'll be an interesting discussion next week. I can't decide whether it's really just going to accelerate the production of items, whether it's content or programmer or tools. And so AI is just going to compress time, or whether it literally is going to put millions of people on the street. Probably a little bit of both. But as with anything, like with the advent of the internet, it's totally reshaped the landscape. Look at the malls. The malls are empty. COVID reshaped office buildings. A lot of those are empty now. All of it has been replaced by technology, but unemployment, seems to be coming around. You still can't get people to work at a damn restaurant, but other than that, I don't know.
That's why you got the split. This really, the economy is split into winners and non-winners, and that non-winner segment is growing, and we're importing more when I say non-winners, I'm not denigrating anybody. But what I'm saying is the spoils of the system. Where do the spoils of the system go to? And in the United States, it's like we don't look for the best and brightest from around the world to come here, except for the, whatever the HB visa program for highly specialized people, but we let masses in. And I think part of the reason is we need masses of people at the service end that are willing to work. So it's like I really see the whole society splitting into two.
you've got a big drug problem. It's
No
gone from
kidding.
20 million
Yeah.
people to 80 million people, which is a huge number that are somehow addicted to various drugs that are interfering with their ability to go to work or be properly hired. That factor, I mean, you got these social issues that are overwhelming the system that have to be addressed.
School age depression. Oh my God. When we were growing
There's a
up,
lot.
this wasn't a thing. Young men shooting up schools wasn't a thing.
What do you think?
Mass shoplifting wasn't a thing. It is a thing now, and it's not
Mhm.
going away, and it's going to be growing. But that's part of the outward signs of, what we're talking about, these societal
Now, if
changes.
you read Mao and Lenin and their approach to undermining a society, we're doing a good job.
Yeah, we are, but we
I
digress.
mean,
All right,
if you look at the
gentlemen.
textbooks that Mao wrote, it's almost as if someone's orchestrating this to undermine what we've got.
Yeah, sad but true. Well,
Amen.
guys, I appreciate your time
Thank you.
today. Thank you very much, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see you next week for yet another episode, and we'll get
Thank you.
into the
Of
future.
marketing.
All right.
I'm in
There
on
you go.
marketing. Thank you very
All right,
much.
well,
It was great.
y'all take
Great
care.
meeting
Thank
you
you.
all.
Yeah,
You too.
great meeting
See you,
everybody.
Dave. Bye-bye.
Bye.